how would that change the dynamic in the family in terms of caring for the kids, how much time he spends commuting and at work, and what is his level of, just basically tired going to be when he gets home, his ability to help with things like homework, prepare meals. And I guess really the biggest question I want to ask you here is, if he was suddenly thrust into the world of being a single parent to your children, would you want him to have the financial ability to choose whether to go back to work or not and when, so that he could be a full-time parent during the time of grief and recovery for your kids, so that they didn't necessarily get into behavioral, psychological, or emotional problems from not having the extra love and attention they'll need at that time? The ability to have the command of that language, in your script for dual income households, it's very descriptive both in the training document, the psychology behind what we're trying to convey, and then the language of what we're trying to convey. And most people have literally not thought about what it would mean to, I mean, you got to really, what you're trying to do is put them in the situation. That's the whole visual thing. That's when you want to speak in visuals and speak in very clear language. They have always been a dual parent household since the kids were born, and they've always shared the workload. In one moment, and there's this moment and then the next moment, that's changed completely. And the ability of, say, somebody to be away from the house for 10 hours a day changes completely. I mean, these are if there's younger kids. I'm not talking about 17-year-old kids who start to shave. I'm talking about kids who are 4 and 5, or 1 or 2, anything up to 14 or 15 or something. As a spouse, I'm devastated and suffering with my own grief. The kids are suffering with their own grief themselves. You need to now step in and do something you've never done before, which is counsel your children about this awful grief. And even if grandma has died previously, it's not the same. It is not the same, as we all realize, of losing a mom or a dad. It's just completely, it's impossible to really describe in words, because grief is such a horrible thing. So can you imagine if, nope, got to go back and work my shift tomorrow. Have fun in school today, kids. Right? They need more parental time. They need more parental attention. They need more parental love. They need to be, maybe get some grief counseling. Children react very differently to grief than adults. Okay. And it hits them at different ways in different times. Some shut down, right? Some all of a sudden, like, almost immediately start acting up. Depends on their age, depends on their internal wiring. So you need to get them to visualize that this is going to be an extremely complicated, extremely emotional, extremely intense situation that you are not prepared for, and no one can prepare you for it, but you'll better be able to handle it if there's the time to handle it. You don't have to go back to work, and you don't, on top of all the grief, don't have the emotional stress of dealing with the financial side of, oh my God, how am I going to pay for their food? Okay. The ability to, like, demonstrate the language that I just gave you about that whole single parent experience comes from saying it so many times, so often, and thinking about it and studying the topic and understanding. I've told you guys, I've actually read, like, child psychology magazine and stuff. I mean, there's studies on all this stuff, right? Why did I do that? Because I wanted to understand at a professional level, and then boil that down to language I can convey to a person. I don't want to scare them to be manipulative. I want to motivate them to take the financial risk off the table and give their family the best opportunity to, recover from that devastation. I can't replace the parent, but I can get rid of all the avoidable, right? Preventable. I can get rid of all that trauma of, can you imagine, like, the kids are trying to deal with the loss of their mom and you're like looking at past due notices? I just, you're not bugging anybody. Okay. This is the conversation we're trying to have with people, because I'd much rather have this hypothetical conversation. I'd much rather help them paint this picture in their mind than them actually experiencing the horrible circumstances we're describing.